and greeted 30 of the former hostages at Andrews Air Force Base, welcoming them home. In other stories making news last week, a very important satellite was launched. But it wasn't a NASA operation. The European Space Agency was behind the successful launch of this satellite. It will pass within about 300 miles of Halley's Comet next March. The European satellite will join 2 Soviet and 2 Japanese probes for a comet rendezvous. Budget cutbacks kept NASA from joining in. But how many teachers can NASA send into space? Last week, they narrowed the field down from 11,000 hopefuls to 10 finalists for their Teacher in Space program. By the end of the month, only 2 teachers will remain for next January's flight. One of the educators said he's, quote, as tickled as a kid with a green egg to make it this far. Long before we even had a space program, this man was starring in the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, The King and I. Last week, Yul Brynner said goodbye to that role after 34 years. It was an emotional experience for him and his fans.
I'll never be able to think of anyone except Yul Brynner in this role. He is the one and only king.
And finally, Raleigh, Mississippi played host to the 31st annual National Tobacco Spit. Now, if you've ever given tobacco spitters any thought at all, you probably assume they're all men. Well, that's wrong. Meet Peggy Woods, the women's champ. Peggy had to go against the other spitters and the wind to pick up the crown.
I ain't think I ever get that far on that stage with this wind blowing, you know. I thought it'd just blow off the stage, but I'm proud to spit that far.
The 4th of July has come and gone, and it always brings to mind those things that are American. Things like hot dogs and baseball and game shows. That's right, TV game shows are an American invention. A lot of people make fun of them, but they are still highly successful. Marilyn Ringo takes us behind the scenes to find out what makes a game show tick.
Not too many people will admit they watch game shows, but millions of Americans do. There are at least a dozen to choose from, like Wheel of Fortune with Pat Sajak and the lovely Vanna White.
Watch it.
Or The Joker's Wild with Bill Cullen.
Hello.
But what if you don't like The Joker's Wild and you hate Wheel of Fortune?
Oh, no.
Then there's always the old standby,
What is Jeopardy?
which was around forever, went off the air, and came back as the original trivia game, the all-new Jeopardy!
Trivia, from the sublime to the ridiculous, on America's ultimate TV trivia game, Jeopardy!
Alex Trebek is the host of the new Jeopardy, so he's in a position to know what makes a show work. Cash.
I want the contestants to do well. I want them to win the big prizes. I don't like it when they miss. On our show, they have to miss a certain number because there are difficult answers in there. But I want them to pick up $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 per show. It's not my money. I enjoy giving it away.
Jeopardy gives away cash. Some shows give away prizes. There are a few that give away both.
It's a brand new car!
If you watch these shows long enough, you're bound to ask yourself, where in the world did they get these contestants?
An art director from La Jolla, California, Don Marsh. A newspaper reporter from Detroit, Michigan, Richard Willing.
This is where they get them. At the start, the hopefuls are no more than a name on a form and one of 3 faces on a photo.
Okay, great.
It's up to contestant coordinators like Ron Carpenter to select the people who'll make it on the air. He likes what he does.
And I think it's one thing I'll take away from this job whenever I leave. It will just be the amount of people and the different people that I've met.
I work as a dialogue coach on T.J. Hooker.
Okay, say you've made it on the show. What's the worst thing that can happen?
That's right, Al. You lost. And let me tell you what you didn't win.
That's also where a good host comes in handy.
Not the end of the world. And at the end of the show, I tell them in conversations, you did well, and you ought to be happy with your performance, even though you didn't win. It's a game show.
Game shows have been around about as long as television. And like others in the business, Trebek thinks their future is as bright as ever.
And I think game shows fulfill a need in our society. It's the old American dream. Hey, I can make money.
I'm Marilyn Ringo for Good News.
Sandy Kenyon talks with movie wizard Steven Spielberg, and we'll take a look at the Emerald Forest. All that and more when Good News continues.
Hi, my name's Charlie Daniels, and I play music for a living. And when I'm not playing music, I like to read about the old West. I don't know anybody that tells about the Old West and writes about the people and their spirit and the good guys and the bad guys as good as my friend Louis L'Amour. I've read most of his books, and a great one to start with is Hondo. Folks at Bantam Books would like to send you this new hardcover edition of Hondo to introduce you to the Louis L'Amour collection. These handsomely bound, action-packed books will make a fine-looking addition to your home or office. They'll involve your children and your whole family and read. After you examine Hondo free for 10 days, and should you decide to keep it, all you pay is $9.95 plus postage and handling. Then you'll automatically receive another Louis L'Amour selection once a month for a 10-day free examination. You may return any copy and stop whenever you want to. You know, I look forward to receiving my copy every month. Call now for your free 10-day examination copy of Hondo. Once you start it, I guarantee you won't put it down. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Call toll-free 1-800-257-1234 to examine Hondo, your first exciting volume in the Louis L'Amour collection. That's 1-800-257-1234. Hondo is yours to examine with no obligation for 10 days. So call now, 1-800-257-1234.
That cool, refreshing feeling of Wrigley's Spearmint Gum puts a sparkle in your eye, a spring in your step, and makes things lots of fun.
It's that little lift from Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. It's that little lift. Come on and get you some.
That clean, fresh taste Wrigley's Spearmint's got. That little lift that means a lot.
It's that little lift from Wrigley's Spearmint Gum.
People? What kind of people?
Smiling people. The Emerald Forest is one of the newest releases of the summer. USA Today bestowed its highest 4-star rating on the film, and it has already proven itself in the European market. It's based on a true story about a young boy who's kidnapped by a tribe in the Amazon, and his father who returns year after year to search for him.
This man spent 10 years searching for the boy. Every year he mounted an expedition, and after 10 years he found him, living with an integrated member of a tribe that had almost no contact with the outside world, and he decided to leave him there. In the journey that the father takes into the Amazon rainforest, takes him into one of the most astonishingly beautiful and strange and frightening places in the world.
Director Borman experienced this same world during the filming of The Emerald Forest, and to prepare, he spent some time living with a primitive tribe, which he found not so primitive.
They live in a marvelous kind of harmony with their environment. They have that magical connection to the world of dreams and the world of the spirit that we seem to have lost. And from this experience, and from the images and the ideas that I found there, I came back and I put these into the story, and I hope that some of that, a lot of that, is in this movie.
Because the natives had never seen a movie, Borman had a hard time explaining to the tribe's medicine man exactly what he was doing there. But the shaman slowly began to understand when Borman compared filmmaking to dreams and visions.
And I explained how we use a lot of trickery and so forth, and a bit of magic. And then his face lit up and he said, "Ah, yes." He said, "That's what I do, you know. We have a lot of trickery in shamanism, and we have a little bit of real magic as well." And he said to me, "You know, you and I, we do the same work."
If John Borman is like a tribal medicine man, then our next subject could be considered the witch doctor of the summer movies. Sandy Kenyon goes up close with Steven Spielberg in this week's edition of The Hollywood Journal.
2 summer films, Goonies, which opened last month, and Back to the Future, which opens this holiday weekend, were both developed by Steven Spielberg. Though they were actually directed by others, both films reflect a theme central to much of Spielberg's work. Individuals count, he's fond of saying, especially young people.
Many of the movies which bear Steven Spielberg's name celebrate childhood as a special, almost magical time. It's not without its scary moments, and sometimes it can seem awfully lonely. but it is also a time filled with adventure, both real and imagined.
I can associate with children much faster than I can with the standard contemporary definition of the adult. And because of that, I can open up more easily toward children and about subjects that embrace children than I possibly can about adults, although I'm getting older and I'm actually changing and I'm becoming, I'm sorry to say, an adult too.
How has having your son, Max Samuel, changed your life?
Oh, it's just changing my life every day. I mean, for one thing, I can't wait to get home at night. And I haven't felt that way since I was in school. Couldn't wait for 3 o'clock to hit, so I could just get home and get away from it. I love making movies, but ever since, Max came into our lives, from the time I leave the house in the morning, I can't wait to get home at night.
Spielberg was in the delivery room when his companion, actress Amy Irving, gave birth to their son.
Anybody who's had a child and has been there for the actual delivery knows exactly what it was like. And anybody who hasn't had a child and hasn't been there for the actual delivery can't possibly describe what it's like, so it sort of falls in between you. It's one of those things where you say you had to be there.
The new father says he was a hellion growing up, a youngster who, from the age of 12, wanted only to direct. As he put it once, whenever I didn't want to face the real world, I just stuck a camera to my face.
I think I was always a nerd. I think the camera, in a way, made me a little more of a nerd. The difference was when some big bully came and picked on me, I just put him in one of my movies and he became my friend.
But as Spielberg remembers it, he never could have become a director without the support of his conservative parents.
Yeah, it was unusual, and I think that my parents came under a lot of criticism from the neighbors who didn't quite understand what all the lights were for at 11 o'clock at night, lighting up the entire block. Those little movie photo floodlights that I had to light the sets. And I think we were a little bit of an aberration in our neighborhood when I was growing up because of my movie making. Need, or it was like a narcotic. It was more than anything else. I loved making movies. I couldn't stop.
Spielberg never did stop. He went on to create the most popular movie of all time, E.T., which, together with Raiders of the Lost Ark, its sequel, and the earlier films, have made $1.5 billion. But fortune, fame, and fatherhood haven't knocked the boy out of this man. And that's one reason his films are so successful.
Spielberg has taken both Amy Irving and their newborn son Max on location with him while he's directing his latest film, The Color Purple. It's a radical change of pace for the Wonderkind, a story of black life starring Broadway sensation Whoopi Goldberg. The film has none of the special or visual effects for which Spielberg is so well known, and the director acknowledges he's very nervous about it. But he adds that he's having a great time discovering what for him is new territory. We'll have more on that next time in the second part of our Steven Spielberg profile. But for now, I'm Sandy Kenyon with The Hollywood Journal.
The Hollywood Journal is brought to you by Maybelline. Be the best that you can be with Maybelline.
My sister loves jazz. I love the Stones. Opposites, right down to our lashes. She likes them soft and natural. I like mine to say, wow. But we've got something in common. Stylo-Lash Mascara by Maybelline. She sets hers lower. I set mine higher. My sister, we'll never be alike. But we'll both have beautiful lashes.
Stylo-Lash Mascara by Maybelline. For lashes the way you like them.
I'm at my best with Maybelline.
These?
We wish we weren't quite so tasty. Now we're filled with more delicious cheese.
And having all that cheese is gonna make me...
And me?
Disappear as fast as 1, 2, 3.
Now more cheese. That's what you get in every Oscar Mayer cheese hot dog. So rich and cheesy. Bet you'll love the taste even more.
Is your hot dog singing? Is yours? Must have been the cheese.
Cosby here with a man who claims he's discovered the origins of Jell-O brand pudding pops, frozen pudding on a stick.
Look, they loved them.
How do you know they're creamalicious Jell-O pudding pops?
Here they are making the pudding.
Like Mom makes. The smooth, rich Jell-O pudding that's in Jell-O pudding pops.
They especially love chocolate vanilla swirls.
But where would ancient children get them from?
Their mummies.
Jell-O pudding pops, good news for your mouth and your mummy.
Try extra sugar-free gum with NutraSweet.
Extra flavor, extra fun in a sugar-free gum.
Extra sugar-free gum with NutraSweet gives you extra refreshing flavor that lasts an extra, extra, extra long time.
Extra flavor for that extra long haul. Extra flavor for that extra long call. Wrigley's Extra, the extra fresh flavor lasts an extra, extra, extra long time.
Get extra sugar-free gum.
Back to the Future is the latest Steven Spielberg production. Like most of his other films, it involves a little comedy, a little romance, and of course, a blend of science fiction and fantasy, a combination that has made many a summer box office hit. Bobbie Battista has a report on the film and its director.
Today's interest in nostalgia seems to center on one era in particular, the fabulous 50s. But were they really as wonderful as we remember? In Steven Spielberg's Back to the Future, a modern teenager finds himself transported back in time to the year 1955, just in time to interfere with his own destiny.
It's about our hero, Michael J. Fox, who accidentally finds himself transported back to 1955 on the eventful day that his mother and father-to-be, who are now teenagers the same age, are supposed to meet for the first time, and he interferes with that fateful meeting and puts his own existence in jeopardy, has sort of disturbed the fabric of time.
Ever since you ran off the other night, are you okay? No, it's hurting. I'm sorry, I have to go. Come on! Isn't he a dreamboat?
Capturing the flavor of the 50s proved a challenge to director Zemeckis. Although too young to remember the decade in detail, he found the perfect method of preparation.
My research is basically, well, you always start with the Sears and Roebuck catalog. That's the first stop, because that's what the real time looked like.
And with that done, it was time to give some thought to the time machine itself. It began as a refrigerator, ended up an automobile, more specifically, a DeLorean.
Once we made the decision that the time machine should be able to be moved around, a car became the obvious thing. And then we said, well, now how can we get some comedy mileage out of this? So we figured, well, what if the car went back to the 50s and it was such a streamlined, modern car that people would think it's a flying saucer?
It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Although Back to the Future is not heavy on special effects, there were a few to deal with during filming, and for a serious young actor like Michael J. Fox, that can be distracting.
You'd go and do a scene, and you'd be in the middle of it, and you'd be feeling pretty good about it, and you'd finish, and then I'd go up to Bob, and I'd say, how was it, Bob? Was it all right? You know, and Bob would say, you kidding? The wind machines worked, the explosions went off, the rain machines worked. I mean, it was wonderful. And I'd say, okay, great, Bob, good, fine, you know.
But Michael's favorite scene is the dance, where he gives the teens of 55 a taste of things to come. And while we're on the subject of rock and roll, you'll be hearing a couple of tunes from rocker Huey Lewis in Back to the Future, but you'll also be seeing him in a small cameo role. It's a first for Huey, and he feels real good about it.
Huey, what happened to Huey Lewis? I don't know. He did a little bit part, and nobody ever heard of him again.
For Good News, I'm Bobbie Battista.
Coming up, Paul Ryden takes us to the National Marble Shooting Championship and will enter the world of romance novels. So stay with us. There's more good news coming your way.
The older I get, the more I sound like my mom. She always said, it's not worth getting unless you get your money's worth. Like serving Kool-Aid instead of soda. With Kool-Aid, your kids get flavors they love and vitamin C. What do most sodas give them? Carbonation and caffeine for about twice the price. Like mother? Like daughter. We like to get our money's worth.
Kool-Aid is the one for kids.
Kool-Aid brand soft drink mix.
Your days go by fast. Your work never seems to end.
That's why Whirlpool washers and dryers are designed to make your world a little easier. They have a super wash cycle for the dirtiest dirt and a gentle cycle for your delicate knits. Whirlpool, quality appliances.
We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool makes it easier for you.
Try extra sugar-free gum with NutraSweet.
Extra flavor, extra fun in a sugar-free gum.
Extra sugar-free gum with NutraSweet gives you extra refreshing flavor that lasts an extra, extra, extra long time.
Extra flavor for that extra long haul. Extra flavor for that extra long call. Wrigley's Extra, the extra fresh flavor lasts an extra, extra, extra long time.
Get extra sugar-free gum.
To get to the heart of a fire ant problem, you must get to the heart of the mound, the fire ant queen. Ordinary fire ant products may never reach her. That's why you need Amdro, the proven fire ant killer. Fire ants use Amdro as food and carry it deep into the mound, right down to the queen. And when the queen dies, the mound dies. Get to the heart of the problem with Amdro, the proven fire ant killer.
Stay with the Superstation. Next, Jeffrey Hunter becomes a freedom fighter against the Japanese in the World War II adventure No Man is an Island. On the Superstation, next.
You probably have seen racks of romance novels at the drugstore, and you may wonder who writes them and who reads them. Well, Ange Humphrey has the answers to those questions and more.
Because there's no such thing as too much romance. There's Harlequin.
Romance novels have exceeded $450 million in retail sales. That's a lot of money. The people who write them, though, aren't always guaranteed a fortune, but they are almost always guaranteed an audience.
I think the majority of our readers fall in the 25 to the 44 age group. She tends to work outside of the home, about 50% of them do, has a college education, and reads them because they're fun entertainment.
The audience that reads romance novels is a very discriminating one, and they don't want day in, day out formula. What they want is a happily ever after good read, but they want the trip to be enjoyable and different each time. I do think now, though, that this is a very good time for romance novels because you have much more latitude in your heroine, you have much more latitude in your hero. You've got to fall in love with your hero to be convincing, and you have to put yourself in the heroine's place to carry the reader along. I don't know that it's really my fantasies I'm writing about, although I do admit that there are a couple of heroes I've written about that I wouldn't mind meeting and going out for a date on Friday night.
And just what are the elements of a good romance novel? Well, first you need a wealthy woman and a very successful man, plus an exciting situation. It also helps to have changes in climate, like, a torrid, steamy jungle or a sunny southern plantation of days gone by. But most of all, a successful novel is just boy meets girl, although it doesn't hurt to have a provocative cover on the book.
So the cover is very important. There are so many authors, so many books. Every month the reader has something like 100 different books to choose from. So we have to do something to stop her, to attract her attention. And that's what the publishers do. They create a fantastic cover. It's going to make her stop and look at it. The cover's not going to sell it, however. What's going to sell it is she's going to read the back of the book, the storyline, and then she's going to open the front and kind of read the first page. And she probably, nowadays, she's so savvy, she's even going to start to read the first chapter to see if she can get involved. And many of our customers do start 1, 2, 3. And if they can get into the story, they're going to abide. If not, there are many, many more books to choose from.
Maybe the real reason for the phenomenal success of romance novels is the happy ending. In this age of uncertainty, when relationships often play second to careers, these books offer a final page that just can't be beat. Well, where else could you turn to read? Jeffrey, standing at the foot of the stairs, his tuxedo shirt opened. The moonlight that played softly on her shoulders only emphasized his chiseled features. He had come back. With her heart pounding, she looked into his dark eyes and said, "For good news, I'm Ange Humphrey."
When you think of games on the Jersey coast, you probably think of the casinos at Atlantic City. But we're not talking high rollers here. We're talking low rollers. Specifically, the National Marble Shooting Championship at Wildwood, New Jersey. And although there are no chips involved in this game, the stakes are just as high.
The best marble players in the country gathered by the Jersey Shore to do battle in the 62nd Annual National Marbles Championship. Unlike their dice-rolling counterparts to the north, these marvelous competitors rely strictly on skill. Well, there's some luck involved.
You guys have any lucky charms or anything like that?
Just money, mainly. Yeah.
Money?
Yeah, heads-up money. Heads-up money.
What's that? You have to...
Find it on the street or something. Heads-up money. If you find a heads-up, we take them and we put them in our marble bag with our shooters and everything.
Kind of a marble custom, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
The game itself is relatively simple. The first to hit 7 of 13 marbles out of the circle wins. If your shooter stays in the circle, you shoot again. If it rolls out, you wait your turn. John Jameson of Reading, Pennsylvania, was the favorite going into the boys' final. His competition, Toby Carlisle of Cumberland, Maryland. Toby won the first game, but was no match for the 14-year-old Jameson, who swept to an 11 games to 2 victory and the national title. John's sister Shelley had a chance to make marble history, the first brother and sister championship duo ever. She faced off against Amy Thompson in an 11-game final. Amy, like Carlisle, is also from Cumberland, Maryland. It turns out that Cumberland and Reading are a couple of marble hotbeds, due in part to the coaching. The Maryland kids, coached by 1971 national champ Rick Mahiney, and Reading's kids, coached by Debbie Stanley, national champ in 1973.
First, you go the first shot, I want you to think stick, think mushroom. Relax, relax. It's harder to watch because I know that the shots that she's missing, that if I was just in there for her, I could do them, but, you know, she has to shoot it.
The girls' final was a nail-biter, going down to the final game possible. That's when Amy Thompson pulled away and won it all. And when you're 10 years old and on the losing end, it's the end of the world. So the nation has 2 new National Marble champions. They get not only a trophy, but a $500 college scholarship. From there, it's all downhill, frankly. First, the mayor of Wildwood crowns the king and queen of marbles. Then comes the ultimate price of victory.
We're all hungry, we're all tired, everybody wants to go home, so kiss the queen and get it over with. Nobody needs to tell you do it. Come on, Amy.
Royalty aside, there are some things even national champions can't be expected to do. In Wildwood, New Jersey, I'm Paul Ryden for Good News.
That's our show for this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. Join us next week when we travel back in time to a medieval jousting match. And we'll take a look at the film St. Elmo's Fire. For Liz Wickersham, I'm Maryann Loughlin, hoping all your news is good news.